Hello world, welcome to the 226th climate change emergency protest here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. I'm out on the Gettysburg battlefield and I'm coming up on the Sickles Monument. Hopefully this is recording correctly, I'm not sure. Let's see here. So this is at the Sickles Barn is what I call it. But if you look at the images from the second day's battle of Gettysburg, the images are horrific. Of dead horses and everything. The photographers came around 2 days after the battle was over. So this is where Major General Sickles lost his leg because he stuck out like a salient way up to that point right near the Confederate lines and got assaulted from three sides. And some people think he did a great thing by using up the Confederates' ammo and drawing them out, and others think that he was an idiot for doing what he did. That's up to you guys to debate that issue. My point of this is that sometimes you do things that affect others in dramatic ways, good or bad, and you don't realize what is happening. Other times, you know what the results are, what you're doing, and I think Sickles knew that. He thought he'd be a hero of this battle, and not sure he was in any shape or form. So this is March 31st, 2023. This is number 226, climate change protest. Next week will be April 7th, 2023. That'll be number 227. And then Earth Day is April 21st to April 23rd, the whole weekend. In London, they're having the big one, the big protest, 100,000 people at least expected there. Tanya and I will be going down to Washington, D.C. for a protest at 12 o'clock down near the White House. And there's also actions going on in New York, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Phoenix, Boston, Los Angeles, and Miami. So I hope you do participate in some sort of action. It's worth your life. It's worth your kid's life as well. So I hope you do get engaged into what is happening, and don't sit this one out, and I'll be talking about that in a minute here. I've got some pretty serious stuff to talk about in the second part of this, but I'll just give you the news right now. I'm trying to get out of the wind. That's why I'm walking around here. Wind's blowing pretty fierce. Latest news, just some of it is that, and then I'll give you a heart-to-heart talk. So the latest news is that around the world is the 13th and 14th atmospheric rivers are striking California, and they've been having these things where weather is getting out of control, and that's just the way it is, and it's not a good thing. And they're getting these massive amounts of rain, which affects the whole country then eventually, and it's a massive amount. As I said, Europe right now is in a drought. You have India, also Myanmar, Indonesia, and East Russia in the drought. Africa, the Congo, Senegal, Gambia, and Guinea in East Africa are having a drought as well. Congo's, of course, in South Central Africa. And then you have the Horn of Africa, which they're in a multi-year drought, and it's been horrific for them. Terrible. I mean, thousands of people are dying, if not millions, but I think it's in the thousands. Mississippi in the United States, dozens have died as a result of tornadoes. It just keeps going on and on. Australia, East and West Australia, Southwest Australia are having drought, whereas they're having floods in the north. So the weather's all over the place. So the part about, I was talking about hurting others and whatever, Joe Biden, who touts himself to be the climate change president, has said that, or has authorized the Willow Project in Alaska to keep going. And that's leasing land in Alaska, and hundreds of millions of barrels will be produced as a result of that. He said his hands are tied. He would have lost in court anyway. Well, as much as I detest Donald Trump, he at least would have said, if he didn't agree with the position, he'd say, go ahead, take us to court. We'll drag it out for years. But no, Biden rolls over, so I'm thinking he's not genuine about what he's saying. And he authorized this Willow Project in Alaska. I talked about it a couple weeks ago, and you can look that up. It's about the Willow Project and how terrible it is. And on Wednesday, he auctioned off millions of acres in the Gulf of Mexico, which also produced millions of barrels of oil. Horrific. His other excuses, again, we would have lost in court had we contested it. And my contention, again, is if you do the right thing, who cares what the result is? And he is choosing to do the wrong thing, but it's the right thing if he's invested and highly entrenched with the oil industry, which he seems to be. People tout him as the climate change president, but he's issued 6,430 permits in the first 2 years of his presidency. And by comparison, Donald Trump, the most heinous of climate change people, only issued 6,100 some permits. So Biden's actually issued more drilling permits on federal land than what Trump did. So, you got to really step back at this point and go, who am I backing here? And it should be neither party at this point. They're both heinous and show no desire to change things. So, the responsibility has to be leveled on the shoulders of those who continue to support any major party, especially here in the United States. But in the United Kingdom, they're doing things too. It's some horrible things with the drilling in the north, in the North Sea and all, and same with Norway. So right now, I'd like to have a face-to-face talk with you, and it's pretty serious as to what's going on. And I'm going to put this here so as people leave me alone. There's people walking around. So it's hopefully this won't blow over like it did the other day. We'll see. So, this face-to-face talk has to happen every now and then with people and relationships and all. I'm pretty sure I'm shooting at the ground. So I think that's better. You can see my beautiful countenance. So, it comes down to this. I know I'm pretty serious about my talks and everything, and I'm sure it's off-putting to a lot of people, but it's only only doing it because, I am horribly afraid for our survival and lack of attention to that. Not only from the political leaders, but from friends, family, and, the public in general. And people aren't keeping up with how bad the situation is, where they have no clue altogether. So it comes down to this. I love you, and I don't want to see humanity and life on Earth go through this. I hear these birds chirping, and they're not going to be here the way we're going. We keep up this path, and neither will you, and neither will I. And we're going to die before our time the way things are headed. And it sounds terrible to say that, and you're like, what are you talking about? There's nothing bad going on. We're in dire situation right now. And when the El Nino erupts out of the ocean situation and vents off the heat from there, and the feedback loops kick in as a result of that, and the environment gets more and more clean, either as a result of extinctions or people dying off, or electrification of everything. It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't. You get an aerosol masking effect, and the cleaner the air gets, which is what we need to do, we need to clean up the environment. But the cleaner the air gets, the more sun that hits the surface of the Earth and then stays inside the atmosphere due to greenhouse effect. And feedback loops are going to kick in big time with the permafrost and all, especially when the El Nino starts. And I'm extremely concerned of our survival over the next 3 years and how bad things are going to start getting. So I love you, and that's the main reason behind all my talks. And in my opinion, the next 3 weeks are our most important weeks that we could have right now. This is it. With Earth Day weekend coming up on the 21st to the 23rd, people have to get out and protest. That's just the way it is. I mean, we need millions of people out on the street, and I don't know how on the earth we're ever going to convince millions of people to get out from their lovely homes and stop watching basketball or Gwyneth Paltrow or the Donald Trump trial and things like that, and actually take control of their own lives and get on the street and voice how unhappy they are with the direction we're going concerning climate change. Kids are extremely depressed about their futures right now. A lot of kids are choosing not to have families because of this reason, and they know things are going wrong. They might not know exactly why things are going wrong or that they are going wrong, but they can feel it. And depression is a big issue to the kids nowadays, people under age 30. So this is the last chance to change our direction off the extinction cliff. And if we don't get out on these next 3 weeks coming up, for Earth Day weekend, I don't see how the political leaders will ever find any incentive to change their ways, such as the Willow Project or leasing off more land in the Gulf of Mexico, which Biden's going to be doing additional land. We can only persuade the politicians if we get numbers on the street, a lot of people on the street, and voice your opinion as to how bad things are, and we're not happy with it. And things are going to spin out of control, and our masses are an indication that A, we're not going to vote for you, and B, when things get out of control, things are going to spin off in directions you don't expect, and it'll probably be the worst that humanity can offer up. So as I said, we're going down, Tanya and I are going down to Washington, D.C. on April 22nd. You're invited to go there, 12 noon at the nearby plaza, and then at 1 p.m. march to the White House. I'm sure it won't matter, and we've been at protests down there already where there have been as few as 1,200 people, and we've been down to protests that there have been over 100,000 people for climate change. So you don't know what you're going to get. The public's fickle, and at this point, there's no excuse. Please spread this to your friends and family that this is it. This last 3 weeks, I'm really upset by it, and what I'm going to be doing, if things don't change by Earth Day weekend, I'm going to be backing down as to my attack position concerning climate change, because at that point, I seriously doubt things will change, and there's no desire on my part to try to convince others to try to change your ways at this point. I'll continue doing the climate change protests, but after April 22nd, if there aren't millions of people out on the street, I don't see how or why I'm continuing to try to convince others to change their lives. I'll tell you what's going on, but it's a lost cause at that point, because the United Nations has given their final report concerning climate change, and you didn't even know about it because the news never reported it. And you need to look up the IPCC reports. Anyways, so what I'm going to do is just state what is happening in the world, but there's not going to be a lot of heat with that anymore at that point. And I need to switch from trying to convince people to actually nurture people as if you're a hospice patient, and which is what humanity is and life on Earth is after April 22nd if we don't convince others to start changing their ways immediately. So I'll see you hopefully out there on April 21st, April 23rd doing the protest. If you can't do that, get out and garden or walk in the park. But frankly, I don't need you to go out in the garden or walk in the park. I need you to actually voice your opinion and get out there on the street. And if you need to, take mass transit or drive to wherever you need to go. As I named off towns, please look up Earth Day 2022. I'm going to talk about it for the next 2 weeks, and then the third week is the week of the protest. But you need to sit like I am and contemplate where you are and where you want your children to be in 5 years or 10 years, because that's what we're looking at, 5 or 10 years, and at the most. I don't. If the El Nino erupts into a super El Nino, it's going to be pretty horrific as far as temperature spiking and then feedback loops kicking in after that. Meanwhile, your politicians keep making that money, and that's all they care about. And they don't care about you. They're not protecting you. And when we go down to Washington, D.C., Tanya and I experienced this when we were down there to protest with Jane Fonda. That it was a climate change protest. This Fire Drill Fridays, I think they called it. We started approaching the Capitol steps, and unlike January 6th, where they let people go in, and we had no intention of going in, we were just standing at the steps, the police came out and physically pushed us back. And, it was pretty an amazing thing how the police are there to protect the corporations and not to protect the people. And there needs to be a thought process change on their behalf, too, because they need to look at who they're protecting and what the eventual outcome will be. Same with the military and things like that. If we're spending millions of dollars on blowing away one brown person 8,000 miles away, with a B-2 bomber or something or other, or a missile, what are we doing? So, we need to realign our priorities, is what I'm saying. China, Russia, and the United States need to grow up. Big countries, baby thoughts. They need to think about others and just their own little bottom line. And if they don't do it, I'm not going to do it. No, China needs to come up with a peace plan for the Ukrainian issue, again, with Russia. And we need to get on with our lives as far as climate change goes. We need to put pressure on the media. If you see a news organization anytime, anywhere, go up to them and say, why aren't you covering climate change at all? They're reporting about the weather constantly, but they're not saying why this is happening. Okay, if they don't know, they need to call in people that do know why things are happening and why, and all that stuff. So I'll catch you April 21st to April 23rd. I'll do a broadcast at least down there. I might do another one before that. But please spread the word. Go to a protest somewhere. Do something. I beg you. And then after that, I'm done begging. You're on hospice at that point, and I'm on hospice at that point, that there isn't going to be any cure for this situation. And this broadcast is going around the world. So if you can, wherever you are around the world, find a big city, get to it, and do your protest with the others. And literally, I'm actually talking to everyone from around the world. That's why I talk about other countries and stuff and continents. So I'll catch you out there April 21st to April 22nd. I love you all, and that's why I've been doing these broadcasts all along. It's been 226 of them. Next week will be number 227 on April 7th, and I'll catch you then. So thanks for hanging in there. I know it's not a rah-rah type podcast, but you really need to contemplate as to what you're doing or what you're not doing, and decide with your, by your actions, what you plan on doing for the rest of your limited lives or the rest of your long life. So hopefully we do the right thing, and I'll see you later.